Anupa Jain.
Present virtually.
Thank you. Mark Ortiz. Orlando Moreno. Orlando Moreno. Ken Snow. Megan Sheldon.
Present.
Thank you. Anthony Dudley.
Present,
Thank you.
virtually.
Edward Martin. Eric Matson. Eric Matson. Chris Mitchell.
Present here on online.
Thank you. Jennifer Peterson. Beret Kimball.
Present.
Thank you. Dina Burns.
Present.
Thank you. Mike Bird.
Present online.
Thank you. Jim Kudlinski. Kevin Rose.
Present.
Thank you. Stephanie Pizzell. Christina Hoppes.
Present.
Thank you. Jamie McCracken. Kelly Howard.
Present.
Thank you. Did I miss anyone? Mr. Vice Chair, we have a quorum.
Perfect. A quorum is. Good morning, members of the MAG Water Quality Advisory Committee. This meeting is now called to order. Please note, MAG policy indicates that either the committee member or a proxy may attend a meeting. Both cannot attend a meeting at the same time. Non-committee persons may view committee meetings via a live video stream on MAG's Water Quality Advisory Committee video playlist on YouTube. For those around the table, please turn on your microphone when speaking. For those participating via Zoom, please state your name when making a comment or asking a question. The MAG public comment process allows members of the public to comment on items on today's agenda or on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. If you would like to comment at today's meeting, please complete the request to speak form located on the meeting room counter in the back. MAG staff can assist with any questions you may have about this. If you parked in the garage, parking validators are available on the meeting room counter as well. If you purchased a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see staff for a ticket, and hearing assisted devices are available from MAG staff. Moving on to item number 2. Item 2 is the call to the audience. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda, informational items or items on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience unless the chair requests an exception to this limit. I have received no requests to speak for the call to audience. Is that correct?
Mr. Vice Chair, no written comments were received.
Perfect, thank you. MAG also provides the opportunity for members of the public to submit written comments via the MAG website. Any comments received 2 hours prior to the meeting have been shared with committee members in advance of the meeting for consideration and will be included in the formal meeting minutes. MAG staff, have we received any online written comments for the call to the audience?
Mr. Vice Chair, no written comments were received.
Thank you. In that case, let's move along to item number 3. Our next item is the approval of the May 22nd, 2018 meeting minutes. Does any member of the committee have questions about this item? Hearing none. Prior to approval of the meeting minutes, there is an opportunity for the members of the public to comment. I have received no requests for this agenda item. MAG staff, have we received any online written comments for this item?
Mr. Vice Chair, no online written comments were received.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve agenda item number 3?
Chris Mitchell from Mesa, motion to approve.
Thank you. And a second?
Kevin Rose from Scottsdale, second.
Thank you. We have a motion from Chris Mitchell, and we have a second from Kevin Rose. A roll call vote will now be taken at this time by Lisa Young.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Members of the committee, when I call your name, please state your vote. Mike Denby.
I'm sorry. I was having trouble finding the mute button. Michael Demi from APS. I'm sitting in as a proxy for Henry Day, who used to be on here and has since retired, but I vote yay.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Chair,
Aye.
thank you. Anupa Jain,
Aye.
thank you. Mark Ortiz. Orlando Moreno. Ken Snow,
Ken Snow, Town of Gilbert, aye.
thank you. Megan Sheldon,
Aye.
thank you. Anthony Dudley,
Aye.
thank you. Ed Martin. Eric Matson,
Maricopa County, aye.
thank you. Chris Mitchell,
City of Mesa, aye.
thank you. Jennifer Peterson. Beret Kimball,
Aye.
thank you. Dina Burns. Aye, thank you. Mike Bird,
Aye.
thank you. Jim Kudlinski. Kevin Rose,
Aye.
thank you. Stephanie Pizzell. Christina Hoppes,
Aye.
thank you. Jamie McCracken,
Aye.
thank you. Kelly Howard,
I'm going to abstain since I was not part of the committee at that point.
thank you. Did I miss anyone? Mr. Vice Chair, the motion passes with one abstention.
Wonderful, thank you. And that brings us to item number 4, a presentation by the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality on advanced water purification. As a reminder, this item is on the agenda for information and discussion only and will be presented by Randy Mattis with the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. And I'm told that we also have John Rezebek and Natalie Kilker online from ADEQ for this presentation as well. With that, Randy, the floor is yours.
All right, great. Thank you so much. As far as changing slides, do you just want me to announce when we're ready to move on to the next slide? Or is there a button on here somewhere?
I think you can announce it.
Okay, perfect. All right. Good morning, everybody. Great to see you all. Thanks for having us. I'm always excited to come talk about advanced water purification. Next slide, please. Of course, as you heard, my name is Randy Mattis. I'm a deputy director here in the Water Quality Division, and I've had the pleasure of working on this program over the last few years here. With me, I have both John Rezebek and Natalie Kilker, who are legal specialists, and they really have been the key to us successfully getting this rule written, getting it as tight as it is, and getting it out the door. Next slide, please. So the way we pulled this presentation together, it contains a ton of information, much more information than we can go over in this small amount of time, but we wanted to leave you all kind of with a laundry list of items in case you have further interest or want to dig deeper. That way you can index things and find things you're looking for. So as we roll through this, we're going to touch on a couple of the big things that we'd like to talk about. Happy to answer questions at the end, time permitting. Please hold questions until then, because once we get rolling here, we will try to get through this as quick as possible so we have plenty of time for questions. So first off, starting out, what is advanced water purification? I know many of you, if not all of you, are familiar with advanced water purification, but just to be sure. So advanced water purification is when you have a wastewater treatment plant or a water reclamation facility that treats domestic sewage and generates, the effluent from that plant is then directly moved into additional treatment and returned to direct potable use without the environmental barrier. So for example, most often here in Arizona, water comes out of these facilities. It's either discharged to a surface water, directed to a golf course, or injected into the ground. And at some point, generally reused as drinking water after it goes through that environmental buffer. This cuts out that process and allows it to directly leave the WRF, go through the AWP, and then back into the EPDS. We started out in developing this rule in response to a legislative mandate. Many of you have probably been around long enough to remember that back prior to 2019, development of DPR, as it was called back then, was actually prohibited in statute. Later on, 2019, that was lifted, and the legislators actually directed us to go ahead and develop this program so that this technology can be used efficiently in Arizona and can increase that toolbox for utilities. Throughout this process, it was about a 3-year development process. We formed a technical advisory group, about 89 individuals in that group, scientists, engineers, utilities. I see people in this group that were involved in that, right? So we got all the best minds we could find to help us with that and help us develop this rule that you're going to hear about here in a moment. And I think we came up with a really good rule. No doubt, as we endeavor to deploy this, there's going to be more questions and more discussions ongoing through utilities that are interested in this rule and the actual deployment of the rule. But I think we came out a really good place. So as you can see here, it is actually effective. We published it on March 4th and it became effective on the same day. Just a reminder, this is a voluntary program. So this is not a program that mandates any utility utilize this technology. It basically just allows it to be used so that any utility that needs to utilize this technology or wants to utilize this technology can pursue it. Program safety, and John and Natalie are going to talk a little bit more about this as they run through the rule. Of course, a primary concern is that program safety, chemical and pathogen removal. The way that this program works is it's a multi-barrier approach where you get credit for certain actions, and it starts all the way at pre-treatment, and then those barriers continue all the way through until you get that purified water out and you're ready to put it into the EPDS. A core component of this rule, as well as that it is a standard-based rule, we wanted to make sure that it was somewhat technologically agnostic, so that as technology advances and innovations are made in water treatment, that utilities that are using this technology can come in for permit amendments to deploy this technology, so they're able to treat this water more effectively, more cheaply, more easier. So it's a lot of focus on these barriers, how to manage these barriers, and then how to verify that the barriers have the treatment levels that we expect in the planning phase. Next slide, please. And with that, I will hand it off to John and Natalie.
Thank you, Randy. Hi, my name is Natalie. And I will start us off here. So my colleague John and I will go through some slides here, providing you an overview of the now effective AWP rules. So first, this broader overview. The rulemaking made changes to 4 chapters within the Arizona Administrative Code. So
Natalie,
chapter, yes.
Would you be able to speak a little bit louder? We're having a little trouble hearing you here.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Sorry about that.
No worries. I can try a couple different microphones, maybe. I'm not sure why it's not working. Is it a little bit better if I speak closer this way?
That's a little bit better.
Okay.
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, so online it's okay, but in the conference room it's not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Settings here in the conference room.
I will do my best. I apologize for that.
No worries, Natalie. If everybody online can hear you just fine, we will manage here at MAG.
Sorry.
Sorry.
All right. So there's some changes to 4 chapters. We have chapter 1, chapter 5, chapter 9, and chapter 14. Chapter 1 changes are specific to licensing timeframes and changes to that. Chapter 5 changes amend minimum design criteria in Article 5 and the interconnection between AWP and Safe Drinking Water Act permitting and design requirements. Changes to Chapter 9 establish the regulatory program itself. So that's our biggest changes are there. And of note, Chapter 9, Article 7, Part E was repealed, and that was the previous potable reuse rule that Scottsdale was permitted under. Changes to Chapter 14 are specific to updating fees. So the core programmatic rules are in Chapter 9, Article 8, and that's broken up into 6 different parts. And my colleague John and I will briefly run through those parts with you, and then we'll provide a little bit more in-depth at the end, some of the applicant procedures. So I will pass it to John, and we can go to the next slide.
Okay. Good morning. I think I'll just check my sound. Is everybody hearing me okay?
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. So yeah, my name is John Rosenbeck. I'm a legal specialist with ADEQ, as Randy and Natalie said. We work in Water Quality Division and the Groundwater Protection Section, and we helped shepherd this rule along. So yeah, so this Part A contains the general provisions of the AWP program. So this includes, some fairly boilerplate type rules like the definition section, also important in many ways. So that's an A801. A802 has a requirement for a periodic internal program review. So kind of like Randy was saying, we keep the program current as technologies innovate and so forth. Within that rule is also the materials that are incorporated by reference listed, as well as the listed quality assurance and quality control methodologies. And then lastly, there's a rule on when and how an AWP facility would be subject additionally to the Safe Drinking Water Act in some cases. So I'll pass it back to Natalie. Next slide.
Thanks, John. Perfect. So Part B, these are a lot of our general program requirements here. It contains some foundational rules for the program, including the Advanced Water Purification Operator Certification rules. So there's a new operator certification specific to AWP. The formation of the Advanced Water Purification Responsible Agency, that is known as the AWPRA, and the AWPRA is the applicant that is required to get the AWP permit if they are applying. Some general requirements are found here as well, and requirements around inspections, violations, and enforcement, record-keeping requirements for the AWPRA applicant, compliance with plans, design type requirements, record drawings, again, design type requirements, and outreach and public communications plan. There's a requirement for all applicants to engage with the community very often and have their own public communications plan describing outreach efforts. So next slide, and I'll pass it back to John.
Thanks, Natalie. Okay, in Part C, the title of this part is pre-permit and permit requirements. So in order to gather up enough information and data sufficient to apply for an AWP permit, there are a number of requirements which are listed on the first couple rules here. So let's see here. These rules include the pre-application conference and an optional project advisory committee that could be formed in order to advise ADEQ and the applicant on certain technical issues. Let's see, C813 there. This is a rule on the applicant's pathways through the pre-permitting requirements, depending on their history with the Safe Drinking Water Act's National Pretreatment Program. So facilities or utilities or applicants that have National Pretreatment Program background are assumed to have a much better understanding of their sewer shed because of those requirements, and therefore the requirements of the AWP program are slightly different, and that's memorialized in that rule. The next rule is at C814. This is the initial source water characterization, which is required to understand the source water as it sounds, moving forward through the application. At C815, there's a pilot study that is required to be conducted as part of, before the permit application itself. And then C816 is the permit application requirements themselves, actually listed in the rule. And then let's see, C817 is the special requirements for a demonstration permit, which is a different permit or an alternative permit to the normal AWP permit. And then in C818 is requirements for a permit compliance schedule. So once the permit is issued, there could be listed in the permit compliance schedule items that need to be completed by the applicant after the permit date. Pass it back to Natalie. Next slide, please.
Thanks, John. Part D, we have some general permit requirements here. These are some administrative requirements more specific to the agency's requirements as the agency is issuing or coverage under a permit or issuing a permit. So this includes public notice requirements, public participation requirements, permit amendment requirements as an applicant will come in for permit amendments, permit term and permit renewal requirements. So this sets forth the 5-year term for the AWP permit and the AWP demonstration permit. Both have 5-year terms. And this also details requirements about permit suspension, revocation, denial, or termination. And next slide, and back to John.
Thank you, Natalie. Okay, part E. This is the entitled Constituent Control, Monitoring, and Reporting. There's some pretty important core rules here. So the first rule is the requirements for enhanced source control. So source control is one of the mechanisms for controlling pollutants or constituents in a sewer shed. So the requirements for the AWP program are in this rule. That's at E824. E825 are the defined tier 1 chemicals, which are defined to the Safe Drinking Water Act maximum contaminant levels. In E826 is the tier 2 chemical requirements, including a tier 2 analysis. So these are chemicals that are identified in the treated wastewater influent of an advanced water treatment facility that have been identified as harmful or potentially harmful to human health and are not listed in the MCLs. Then in E827, there's the tier 3 chemicals, as we call them. So these are performance-based indicators. So these chemicals are selected in order for the applicant to properly test each one of their treatment processes or their treatment technologies. They can the idea here is the performance-based indicator will you can sample and measure it before a treatment process, and then the chemical will go through the treatment process and it should be removed at a certain rate, and that'll tell you how the treatment process is performing. So there must be a list of tier 3 chemicals required as well. E828 are the pathogen control requirements. So for cryptosporidium, enteric virus, and those sorts of pathogens, the rules are laid out here, including there's 2 different approaches that are allowed in the program. There's a standard approach and a site-specific approach as well. E829, ongoing monitoring requirements, self-explanatory. E830, reporting requirements, self-explanatory. And E831, an annual report requirement, which is also self-explanatory. Let's move on to the next slide. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. And the final part of the rule in Article 8 is Part F, the technical and operational requirements. So generally, all of these rules set forth the requirements that are necessary for an applicant to meet as they are specifically building their facility and also as they're doing ongoing operations. So we have our minimum design requirements here, the technical, managerial, and financial demonstration requirements, total organic carbon management during their ongoing operation of their facility, full-scale verification requirements. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, operations plan, how they operate their facility, and then a vulnerability assessment, which is a required component before they get issued a permit. And then if we can go to the next slide, that'd be great. Thank you.
So those were the 37 programmatic rules that we just overviewed. Fast and furious. I apologize for that, but we haven't been given a lot of time today to go into details, Randy said. So on this slide, we've been, as you might imagine, in contact with many of our stakeholders, including some of the folks here in MAG, and there's been some reports that it's a little bit unclear in the beginning how to approach, starting to put together the information for the application and the pre-permitting requirements. So in the last couple of weeks, we've developed what we're calling an initial applicant procedure that it's basically a guidance leading a potential applicant through the beginning stages of putting the information together that will eventually be in the application. So I'll just run through this very quickly. So essentially, in the very beginning, an applicant would develop essential components of their enhanced source control plan, which includes compiling a list of all the non-domestic dischargers in the sewer sheds that will lead to their advanced water treatment facility. And then from that list, they'll also compile a chemical inventory list of all the chemicals that are discharged, used, or stored on site. And then they'll take that information and bring it into the tier 2 analysis. So these are the chemicals that are not the MCLs, but are known to be harmful to human health. So the tier 2 analysis requires compiling what are known as a pass-through or interference chemical list. So, based on the chemicals that were inventoried, which one of those chemicals or which of those chemicals are known to pass through treatment processes. And so, create a list of those pass-through or interference chemicals and put those aside. And then there's selecting a projected advanced water treatment facility treatment train. So essentially, the tier 2 rule allows the applicant to understand what's likely to be in their sewer shed and in their treated wastewater influent, based on the inventories that they did for the non-domestic dischargers and the chemical inventory. And even at this phase, before doing initial source water characterization, an applicant should be able to project what kind of treatment train preliminarily will be useful or could be useful to employ to remove some of these tier 2 chemicals that they're finding through this kind of paper exercise of inventorying. And so from that projected preliminary treatment train, the applicant should compile a projected tier 2 chemical treatment list. So basically this is, you've identified your tier 2 chemicals, and you want to look at the treatment processes you have, reverse osmosis, some of these other treatment processes, and determine which of those tier 2 chemicals are known through the literature, I think mostly, to be removed by these treatment processes. So then you have a list of what is likely to be removed by your treatment process. So that's another list you put aside. And then those last 3 bullets there, that analysis I just described leads to finalizing the scope of what you're going to be sampling for in the initial source water characterization. You finalize that scope and you move towards conducting initial source water characterization. And then once you've done initial source water characterization on your treated wastewater, your influent to the advanced water treatment facility, those results kind of in almost like an iterative way, an iterative process, will inform adjustments to that projected preliminary treatment train, also the piloting that is going to be done, and it'll also help you iterate the enhanced source control plan, what needs to be removed before the treatment process, and so on. So we've been working with some of our preliminary applicants and trying to guide them through this process as it's complicated. So we thought we'd share that today with MAG as well. So I hope that made sense, and I'm going to pass it back to Natalie. Next slide.
Thank you, John. This is the last slide. I won't go in and talk about it in much detail for the sake of time. So maybe use this as like a post-meeting resource if you would like. But what this kind of flow chart, process flow represents is the different phases of the application procedure that an applicant must go through as they get their AWP permit or their AWP demonstration permit. So it just outlines the different phases, what's included in those different phases, and so on. So I won't go into any more detail on this, and then we can just skip right on to the next slide, and then take questions. So next slide. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so also as a post-meeting resource, we listed contacts to some key members of the AWP team, AWP staff members here at ADEQ. So we now have a dedicated email address for this program. It's awp@azdeq.gov. And then here's Randy's, myself, Natalie's information, as well as our lead engineer, Shivani Shah. And so with that, we'll go to the next slide. And I think Randy, if you're still with us, we'll field any questions if there's any time left. But if there's not time, then thanks a lot.
And I do believe we have some time. Thank you for the presentation. Do we have any questions from members of the committee?
Vice Chair, I have one question for ADEQ. This is Beret Kimball with the City of Phoenix. Does ADEQ have any information on the House Bill 2106 that stalled quite some time ago?
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like that's one where we're going to have to, for those not in the know, that House bill essentially relocates the AWP program into the drinking water statutes. We think that's the right place for it. It is drinking water after all. So we definitely support that bill. However, it looks like that's not going to move this year. So we'll be taking another swing at that next legislative session.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the committee?
Yes, this is Ken Rose, City of Scottsdale. Question for ADEQ. Is the operator certification for the advanced water treatment, just wondering how is the development and the testing procedure coming with that? I know that's a big undertaking.
Yeah, great question. We're definitely moving along with it. We have a contractor assisting us with that. They have source materials and are working through developing those test questions. John, Natalie, I'm not sure if I was at the last AWP meeting. Do you have anything more recent to put some context on it?
I don't, in terms of the development of that certification. I don't have any newer.
Okay, gotcha. So on track, moving ahead, and yeah, not anticipating any big problems with that anyway.
Thank you. Good to hear. And again, it is a big undertaking. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, our pleasure. It's been fun.
Thank you. Any more questions from members of the committee? Hearing no more. Well, Randy, John, Natalie, thank you for the wonderful presentation today. We appreciate it. And yeah, looking forward to seeing more on advanced water purification as it continues to evolve here in the Valley.
Awesome. Yeah, our pleasure. Anytime. Feel free to give us a heads up if you want to hear from us. Great to see you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving along, we're going to move to item 5, the MAG 208 Water Quality Management Plan Process agenda item. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion only. Will be presented by Julie Hoffman with the Maricopa Association of Governments. Julie?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the committee. Today's presentation, as the Vice Chair just indicated, is to give an overview of the 208 Water Quality Management Plan process. As everyone here knows, we haven't met in quite some time. However, we've recently learned of potentially some activity in 208. Nothing has been officially submitted to us at MAG. However, with the possibility of some activity in the future coming our way, we thought it would be good to get the committee together, make sure everyone's familiar with our 208 process. First, I wanted to start out with kind of the importance of this process. And really, it's a critical process since our region has cities and the county back to back. So our issues, any issues related to reuse, recharge, discharge, even Superfund sites, cross jurisdictional boundaries. So it's important that we have a regional review of wastewater treatment facilities to ensure that wastewater treatment needs are being met across this region and without any negative environmental impacts. backing up to kind of what 208 is, water quality management planning, it comes from the Clean Water Act. And the objective of the Clean Water Act there is to restore, maintain the chemical, physical, and biological integrity of the nation's waters. And one of the ways it does that is by requiring the development and implementation of area-wide waste treatment management plans for pollution control. These plans describe the wastewater treatment configuration for the region over a 20-year planning period. And it's section 208 that where the governor was to designate boundaries of areas that have substantial water quality problems and a single representative organization, including elected officials from local governments, that could develop effective area-wide water quality management plans. So in 1974, the governor of Arizona designated MAG as the regional water quality management planning agency for Maricopa County. And so it's in this capacity that MAG prepares and maintains the 208 water quality management plan. That plan has two major elements. There's the point source element that describes that wastewater treatment configuration for the region over the 20-year planning horizon. And then a non-point source section that generally includes regional surface and groundwater quality and federal and state programs designed to control non-point source pollution. The original MAG 208 plan was prepared in 1979, and we have had several amendments and major revisions to that since that time. The last update was in 2014. We did a point source update. This is a little difficult to see, but this is a figure from the point source document update in the executive summary that includes the locations of existing and planned wastewater treatment facilities that are identified in our 208 plan in Maricopa County. And there are over 120 wastewater treatment facilities identified as part of our 208 plan. Again, a reason why it's critical that we have a regional review of these facilities. And how this plan is used, it is a key guiding document used by the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality as well as Maricopa County in granting permits and approvals for wastewater treatments or for wastewater treatment plants in the Maricopa County area. Consistency with the 208 plan is necessary to receive an aquifer protection permit from ADEQ as well as the Arizona Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit. Consistency is also required for the approval to construct issued by the Maricopa County Environmental Services Department. So in other words, in order for you to build that wastewater treatment facility, it needs to be identified in the MAG 208 plan. If a proposed facility or an ZIPD's discharge is not included in the 208 plan, we would need to modify the plan. We wanted to show you this chart as well. On this slide, you can see a number of permits that are linked to the MAG 208 water quality management plan, either directly or indirectly. I just mentioned some of the more direct links to the 208 plan with the permits and approvals from Maricopa County and Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. However, there's some that are also indirectly related that may require, for example, an aquifer protection permit, which requires consistency with the 208 plan. So we've listed them here for you. These are permits and approvals from ADEQ, the Arizona Department of Water Resources, Maricopa County, and the Arizona Corporation Commission. As you well know, these are not all the permits and approvals required for a wastewater treatment facility, but these are the ones that have been identified linked to the MAG 208 water quality management plan in our region. As I mentioned, if a proposed facility is not identified in the 208 plan, in order to be permitted, the plan would need to be modified. And there are 3 established procedures for doing that. One is a periodic major revision. And that's where we update the entire plan. And then we have the amendment process and a small plant review and approval process. So these are for an amendment and the small plant process. This is where we may add like a specific wastewater treatment facility. These processes are much shorter than an overall major revision. So they're more often used to update the plan. The small plant review and approval process, that one was carved out to address the change in how wastewater was being handled in the valley. back in the, like 1979, when our first 208 plan was prepared, the idea was there would be more of a centralized wastewater treatment in Maricopa County. However, with the passage of the Groundwater Management Act and the value put on the reclaimed water, we started to see more smaller facilities being built closer to points of reuse and recharge. And so the MAG formed a committee to carve out a small plant review and approval process so that instead of going through the whole full-blown amendment process, there's a slightly shorter process where we still would evaluate small facilities and make sure that there's no negative environmental impacts associated with them. And I'll go into more detail on these processes. So here's a flow chart for the amendment process. The major revision process would be similar to this, and it starts with the jurisdiction in which a new facility would be located. That is who makes the recommendation or request to MAG to add a new wastewater treatment facility to the 208 plant. It comes from the MAG member agency. Once we receive that request to add a new facility or a new discharge, we call a meeting of this Water Quality Advisory Committee. The role of this committee then is to review that amendment and authorize a public hearing at that point. A public hearing would be held, and then it comes back to the Water Committee to make a recommendation to the MAG Management Committee. The MAG Management Committee is the chief administrative officers in the MAG member agencies, like the city and town managers, county manager, for example, and they make the recommendation then to the MAG Regional Council. That's the decision-making body here at MAG. That's the elected officials from the MAG member agencies. Once Regional Council has taken action, it goes to the State Water Quality Management Working Group. That's an advisory group to ADEQ. Representatives on that committee are the councils of governments across the state, which we call the designated planning agencies. And they make a recommendation to ADEQ, who certifies the amendment and sends it off to EPA for final approval. So that's our amendment process. If we have an amendment that comes through to add a new wastewater treatment facility or expand one. And I'll go into more detail about what triggers this process. And then here is the small plant review and approval process that I had previously mentioned. So this, when we say a small plant, we're talking about facilities that are 2 million gallons per day or less that would not require an AZIPTES discharge specifically. It's a slightly shorter process you can see here. However, it starts out the same. It comes from the jurisdiction from which the facility would be located that makes the request to MAG. It then goes to this Water Quality Advisory Committee, who makes their recommendation to the Management Committee. You can see that there's not the public hearing as part of this process, but still it goes to Management Committee, then Regional Council. Does not go to the State Working Group. It goes directly to ADEQ for certification. Once ADEQ has certified that amendment or the small plant, we let Maricopa County Environmental Services Department know so that that can be included as Maricopa County makes their review and issues their approval to construct for a new facility. I also wanted to take a minute to talk through some streamlining efforts that we made to the 208 process. Back in 2014, ADEQ was working on streamlining various processes they had in order to issue their permits faster and be more responsive to their customers, the regulated community. So MAG agreed to work cooperatively with ADEQ on streamlining options for our 208 process that would not jeopardize the integrity of that process. So in 2015, we formed a stakeholder group, included representatives from ADEQ, MAG member agencies, private utilities, home builders, and looked at the entire 208 process. So that means the local process before an amendment would even come to MAG, excuse me, and at the regional level, the MAG process, as well as the ADEQ process, which is the point from which the approved amendment would go to ADEQ from MAG. Significant improvements were made throughout this entire process. In fact, for an amendment, it was shortened from an 18 to 24-month process down to a 9-month process. And then for the small plant process, it was shortened from 12 to 17 months down to 6 months. So a lot of effort went into making this an efficient and streamlined process. A proposal was prepared identifying all of those streamlining efforts. We created 2 business-friendly fact sheets that are shown there on the left-hand side of the screen. They're available on our website. It's essentially a pre-application packet. Includes information like when the process may be required, as well as a step-by-step of the process. And then we streamlined the 208 checklists that are part of the amendments so that only applicable information would be required to be included. So also as part of those pre-application packets, we put in there when an amendment is required and when it isn't. Felt it was very important to be very clear on this for the applicants. So you can see here when this process would be triggered. So a new facility that's going to be greater than 2 million gallons per day that's not identified in the 2A plan. Also a new facility that would have a discharge that's not identified in the plan. If you're going to increase capacity of a facility beyond what is identified in the plan. So if the plan says it's going to have an ultimate capacity of 10 MGD, but it's determined it now needs to increase to 12 MGD, for example, it would need to come through as through the amendment process in order to increase that capacity to be permitted at that level. A zip discharge that's not identified, and then a request to become a designated management agency. That's not really an issue in our region since the majority of our MAG member agencies became designated management agencies in the 1970s. So on the flip side, when is amendment not required? Here is a list of that as well. So a new facility that is 2 MGD or less that does not have a discharge requiring a ZIPDs is not required to go through the amendment process. It would go through that small plant process. Service area expansions for wastewater treatment facilities, and I'll touch on that one in a minute in more detail because that used to require an amendment. On-site or septic systems do not require an amendment, nor does changes in facility ownership, treatment technology, or effluent quality, or disposal method, unless you're going to add in a ZIPDs discharge that's not identified in the plan. In addition, changes or adoption of new state-specific water quality standards or TMDLs, those do not require an amendment to the plan. These things are often rolled up and incorporated when we do a major revision to the plan. And then finally, expansion of a municipal planning area boundary. And why that one is on there is because we use the municipal planning area boundaries to identify service areas for the jurisdictions within our region. Here on the slide, you can see the municipal planning area boundaries for Maricopa County. It does extend on this map down into Pinal County there. However, just want to note that our designation at MAG for water quality management planning is just Maricopa County. So any portion of jurisdiction or a full jurisdiction that's outside of Maricopa County would be in the planning area for different council governments. For example, in Pinal County, for 208 purposes, you would be under the Central Arizona government's 208 plan. As I mentioned, service area expansion. So this is one that is now on the list of not requiring a 208 amendment. Prior to streamlining, we did require a 208 amendment for this. And what a service area expansion is having a facility in one municipal planning area expand and serve parts of another municipal planning area. So you're crossing those MPA boundaries. Instead of requiring a full 208 amendment for that, instead we now have the impacted jurisdictions, which are those within 3 miles, provide letters to MEG indicating that everyone is in agreement with this. Once we receive all those letters, it's essentially effective. We post them on our website and notify all of those impacted jurisdictions that it is now effective. It's important to note, though, this is just if you're going to expand that service area. If for some reason that change would increase capacity of the plant or add a new ZIPDs that would make it inconsistent with the 208 plan, that would require an amendment. However, if it's just to a facility has excess capacity and would like to serve a development in another municipal planning area, you would go through this instead and provide those letters from the jurisdictions within 3 miles. And this has been used several times since we streamlined in 2015. This has actually been the most popular, most used process in the last several years. So it's cut down on the number of amendments we've been doing. So after talking about the process there, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Water Quality Advisory Committee, this committee and its role. As you've seen on the flow chart there, this committee serves an advisory capacity to the MAG Management Committee. So any recommendations from this committee would go on to the MAG Management Committee. And really the primary role of this committee is to review and make recommendations on 208 matters. So those are the any periodic major revisions that of the plan, 208 plan amendments, and the small plant review and approvals. So really what that consists of is for a major revision, it's looking at the entire plan would be updated. For 208 amendments and small plants, we have guidelines or checklists that are incorporated into the document that you would review. For amendments, you'd be looking at how the facility meets the needs of the region, looking at 20-year needs, financing, construction, and other other measures that are necessary to carry out that plan. For the small plant review and approval, same thing to review it for compliance with the process, as well as making sure any regional impacts are addressed. However, in addition to this primary role, similar to today, we could also use this committee as a regional forum for discussion on water quality matters. So that's also something that, if it's helpful to the group, we can use this as well for this purpose. However, again, the basis of this committee is to really review these 208 amendments and small plant review and approvals and any major revisions that we may have. But appreciate the ADEQ coming in and providing an update on the advanced water purification, and we can use this committee for those purposes as well. Finally, wanted to provide links to some resources for after the meeting, if they would be helpful to you. First is a link on our website that identifies all the 208 amendments, small plant review and approvals, and service area expansions that have been approved and incorporated into our 208 plan. This link is to the last revision of the point source and non-point source section combined, which would have been in 2002. And then this is the update of this is the point source update that was done in 2014, as well as links to the pre-application packets that are available. All this is available on our website. And happy to answer any questions. That concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time. I know it's a lot of information. And for some of you, this might be review, but I know some of you, it's brand new information. So I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Thank you, Julie. We appreciate the presentation. And after 7 years, it's really nice to have an update on the scope and the role of this committee. Do we have any members that have any questions or comments on Julie's presentation?
Megan Sheldon has a question. Megan, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation, Julie. I really appreciate it. I have a couple different questions. So I know you mentioned that there are some entities or some projects that may come to fruition in the next few months or year that would prompt an update to the 208 plan. But I was wondering if MAG has any kind of schedule for an update to the 208 plan, regardless of new plants coming on board.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, Ms. Sheldon. Yes, so good question. Our last update was done in 2014, point source update, which I had mentioned. The water quality management planning that we do here at MAG is funded through an assessment paid for by our MAG member agencies. And so right now we are working through, we're actually at the final end of the budget process for fiscal year 2026 and 2027. That's going to Regional Council next month for approval. In there, we do not have identified increase in that assessment to fund an update to the water quality management plan. That would be a pretty sizable increase in that assessment. However, if it's something that the MAG member agencies are interested in funding in the future, that's something we could look at potentially in the FY 2028-29 budget timeframe.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions or comments from any additional committee members? Seeing none?
Wait.
All right. Thank you, Julie. We appreciate it.
Mr. Vice Chair, Megan Sheldon has another question.
Megan, go ahead.
Sorry, one more question. One thing that would be really helpful to me, and maybe it exists and I'm just not aware of it, but a GIS layer, a MAG map that shows the service areas for the wastewater treatment plants. I know the Corporation Commission has some maps, but the scale is pretty hard to decipher. And especially as we go through all these different amendments where the service area expands, but not necessarily a plant takes on additional treatment capacity. So really understanding where, and especially some of the private wastewater providers, where their service area ends, or areas that aren't claimed by either private providers or municipal wastewater providers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, Ms. Sheldon. Yeah, so one thing I wanted to point out with that is the challenge is with the 208 process, we define service areas as the municipal planning area boundaries, which I have shown up here on the slide. So we don't get into the service areas necessarily for each individual wastewater treatment facility because we know those often change within a jurisdiction. So we use the municipal planning area boundaries to define service areas for a municipality, not the individual wastewater treatment plants themselves.
Sorry, a quick follow-up, but the service area specific to a plant is part of the amendment the 208 plan amendment process. So we have individual maps. We just don't have one comprehensive map.
Right. So when someone comes through with a 208 amendment, they'll indicate the area that they plan to serve to help identify kind of the population expected for that area to make sure that it meets the needs of that area. However, if, for example, they have excess capacity and would like to take on some additional development within that municipal planning area that's outside of what they initially came through to do that 208 amendment for, that doesn't require them to come back through to us to amend that plan. So we don't have that information available that shows exactly what the service area is for each individual wastewater treatment facility, if that makes sense. But I'm happy to talk more about it, about what the needs, what would be helpful to you if there is something we could do. We just don't get into the specifics of each individual plant with regard to the service area as they may change within a municipal planning area.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any additional comments or questions from any committee members? Seeing and hearing none. Thank you again, Julie. We appreciate the presentation. Okay, moving on to item number 6. Committee members have an opportunity to request topics or issues of interest that they would like to have considered for discussion at a future meeting. Are there any requests at this time from membership for an item that they would like to hear about on a future agenda?
Vice Chair, I have a recommendation or a request. If we don't have any information from ADEQ, but maybe an update on the aquifer water quality standard rulemaking.
That's a good one. Thank you.
This is Chris Mitchell from Mesa. So probably the ongoing item on the water certification program, where we're at with that.
Okay, thank you. Would there be any interest from the committee hearing an update regarding the lead and copper rule revision from ADEQ at some point in the future?
It's Chris Mitchell. I think that'd be prudent to do that as well.
And sounds like we have a few ideas that would be agendized for discussion and information purposes outside of our standard function for the 208. Any other items that individuals would like to hear about? Okay. Moving on to item number 7, we got comments from the committee. An opportunity will be provided for committee members to present a brief summary of current events. As a reminder, the committee is not allowed to propose, discuss, deliberate, or take action at the meeting on any matter in the summary unless the specific matter is properly noticed for legal action. At this time, do we have any committee members that would like to provide a brief summary of current events, either related to their municipality or other? Hearing none at this time, so I'll offer one up myself. In March, a memo was sent to committee members soliciting letters of interest to be the new vice chair. If any committee members are unaware, I'm moving from vice chair up to chair as of Monday of next week. And at this time, don't have any interest in anybody being my new vice chair. So I would love to see a letter or two. And I believe Julie was telling me that they like to balance the chair and vice chair geographically across the valley. So I'm currently representing the city of Avondale, looking for a vice chair that may be, and I'm not sure if it's a hard and fast rule, from the East Valley. So keep that in mind. You don't have to volunteer today, but if you are interested, please contact Julie or myself, and we'll get you moving forward with the letter of interest process. Any other updates from committee members? Right on. In that case, we are going to move to adjournment. As a quick reminder, the Water Quality Advisory Committee meets on an as-needed basis. The committee will be notified of the next scheduled meeting when it happens. Business is now concluded. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Chris Mitchell, Mesa, motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Chris. Do we have a second?
Kevin Rose with Scottsdale, second.
Thank you, Kevin.